Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be talking about episode 104 and how important it is to the future of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. So, realistically, spoilers, because obviously I'm talking about an episode that just came out on Monday for, those who didn't see the live stream on Thursday last week. But, spoilers. Don't want to spoil anything. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. So, in episode 104 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role, we had quite a bit of information drop or potential information drops and sort of setups for the future about what's going on. So, as of right now, before episode 105 comes out, maybe some things change before that, who knows. But the setup right now seems to be for the future and for, closing towards the end of Campaign 3. The party and a handful of their allies are planning 3 separate attacks on 3 very important places, people, individuals on Ruidus to sort of end the whole conflict. And it's all going to happen simultaneously. There's going to be an attack on Ozo Kuth, one of the the leaders of the armies for the Ruidusborn and the Rylorans on Ruidus. He is currently at the Tristan dig site, or the Malleus Key. There's going to be an attack on the Weave Mine, the 5 leaders of the Rylorans and seemingly Kavirus the city and the rest of the moon of Ruidus, other than Prodathos being their overlord. And then obviously they're going to attack the Hallowed Cage and Ludinus in an attempt to stop Ludinus from being able to release Prodathos from the cage. So these 3 attacks are going to be happening simultaneously, which is really, really cool. And the people who are taking part in the attacks are the coolest parts of all of it. During the war planning phase of all of this, Keyleth mentioned how she believed that she could pull a couple of her old friends and a couple old legends out of retirement to attack the Malleus Key. And she said if there's going to be anyone to sort of break that machine and potentially save Vax, it was going to be her, implying the people that she is going to recruit for this attack on the Tristan dig site and the Malleus Key to fight Ozo Kuth is the rest of Vox Machina. And this is so badass. It implies that there's going to be a one-shot for Vox Machina, which is really cool. It's been a long, long time since we've literally seen anything like in-game from them being like a group together. I think the last thing they did together that we saw was the Danlin's Closet one-shot, which was forever ago. It was still during Campaign 2 when that came out. So it's been a long time since we've seen anything revolving around Vox Machina and the cast playing as them. So that's really badass and really cool. Allura, at the same time, or just after Keyleth mentioned that, said that she had a group of people who were well versed in dealing with psychic attack and psychic trauma, which is, for those who don't know, the Mighty Nine. And their biggest fight was at the end of the campaign when they fought Lucian and, well, his new reincarnation of the Cognoza Ward from Aor, who were all like psychically connected and all that sort of shit. So he, the main villain of Campaign 2, was like psychically powered and all that sort of stuff. So her implying that she knows a bunch of people who are good at dealing with that stuff would lead towards us believing in the Mighty Nine, which would set up a Mighty Nine one-shot where they get to go and fight the Weave Mind, which is so badass. So cool. The fact that, and a lot of people have been saying this for a long time, that they think that all of the groups are going to come together to sort of deal with the main threat. And honestly, it makes a ton of sense for this to happen. There was a lot in the way for the Bell's Hells to be able to do all of this. So the fact that the Mighty Nine and Vox Machina are all going to aid and help in this is perfect. And it's like a lot of people are making the comparison to Avengers Endgame, and it makes sense. It just is something like this that can work and is really cool. The fact that we're going to get one-shots about both of these, maybe even more depending on how things go, but the fact that we're going to get one-shots from these old campaigns coming together and dealing with the problems at the same time as, the main cast or the Bell's Hells are dealing with the main villain and Ludinus is really cool and really badass, because for a long time I was trying to wrap my head around how the Bell's Hells are going to be able to do all of this by themselves, and they aren't. This makes a lot of sense, and it's really badass and really cool. So this inevitably brings up the question of who is going to play who. Obviously, most of the cast are going to play their prior characters, but there's a certain Robbie Damon who didn't play at all in those campaigns. And, the question was asked pretty quickly and answered pretty quickly thereafter. In the cooldown episode, or the cooldown video that's on Beacon, after the episode comes out, it basically got answered right away who he could potentially play. There is nothing confirmed, but it is a very strong possibility that he could likely, for the Vox Machina crew, play Taryon Darrington, which would be really cool and really badass. It's been a long time since that character's been around as well. Literally, the Darrington Brigade episode was the last time we saw him, and that was during Campaign 2 as well. So it's been a friggin' minute since he's been around. And realistically, that could imply that the Darrington Brigade could be around and be helping during the same fight. Maybe Vox Machina and the Darrington Brigade are fighting at the same time at the dig site, which would be really badass and really cool. And I personally love that idea now that I think about it. And this sort of stuff gets me so hyped for any animated series, I swear to God. Just thinking about all the possibilities, because they have to animate Campaign 3 now. Because Campaign 3 is going to be like the true conclusion for a lot of these characters, right? Like, yeah, you get the conclusion at the end of Campaign 1 and Campaign 2 for these characters, but now we get to see them a little bit later on in life, and it seems like this is going to be the last hurrah, specifically for Vox Machina. So it needs to happen now, right? It needs to get animated. But anyway, for Campaign 2, for the Mighty Nein, it seems that Talzin is willing to offer Robbie Damon Mollymock Kingsley. And to me, that was wild. I suspected that he would want to play Mollymock or Kingsley, but instead it seems like he's more on board with playing Caduceus and handing the reins of Kingsley over to Robbie Damon. And personally, I really like this idea, because while Mollymock was the first character he played in Campaign 2, Caduceus became Talzin's character for Campaign 2. That is his Mighty Nein character. And it's really cool that he is seemingly more willing to play Caduceus again. Granted, it might be because like the whole relationship to gods, which makes Caduceus thematically more relevant to the conflict. So maybe that's it. But I like the idea of Kingsley being a separate character, being a separate person, literally. Like how Mollymock is Talzin, how Lucian is Matt, and Kingsley could be Robbie Damon, or split between Robbie Damon and Talzin. I think that's a really cool idea thematically, and I just like the idea of him potentially playing those characters. And realistically, if Robbie doesn't want to play as any character from any of these games and instead play someone else, like he doesn't want to be picking up a former character of Talzin or Sam, he could literally play any character they've come across in the last, well, it's been 36 years, I think, from Vox Machina to Bell's Hells. So, and it's only been like 5 or 6 years since Campaign 2. So, in that time frame, those characters could have made a bunch of allies, or Robbie could play anyone, realistically. I personally think what would be really cool for Robbie to play would be, and I know there's already been 2 people to play as him, but just something about Robbie Damon playing Sean Gilmore tickles my fancy. Just something about that makes so much sense to me. I don't know why. I feel like that would work really well for him. So, just putting that out there. He could literally play any character they've ever interacted with, or a character that's come up within the last 30 plus years of not seeing the Vox Machina crew. So, and the same goes for Mighty Nein. He could play fucking Pumat Soul for all we care. It would be really badass and really cool, as long as Robbie's there, because we all love Robbie Damon. However, Robbie Damon is not the only person who has character problems for a Vox Machina one-shot, or even a Mighty Nein one-shot. Realistically, Liam O'Brien also has some mild issues. He's played 3 separate characters for Vox Machina related stuff. Obviously, he played Vaxel Dan, but Vaxel Dan is currently a marble inside the Malleus Key. So, he's kind of the goal of the one-shot, and he is going to be stuck and not able to do anything. So that's an issue. And then his other character, who was like the most recent one that we saw for a Vox Machina one-shot, was Derrig. That would be Orm's father-in-law. So, currently, dead. Which just leaves one option for Liam O'Brien to be playing as, and that is Liev Tell. Liev Tell was Liam's character for the Search for Grog and the Search for Bob one-shots that took place directly after the end of Campaign 1 when Grog pulled a card and his soul got separated. They had to go to Pandemonium. It was a whole thing. But she was the character he played, and she is a follower of the Matron of Ravens and is implied to be Bertrand Bell's lover. So there's actually a couple of reasons why she'd want to get involved and help the Bell's Hells. First of all, the main group of Campaign 3 is named after her lover, so I feel like there's a connection there alone. But the Matron of Ravens might also want one of her, clerics to be fighting and aiding in the freeing of her champion. So realistically, it just makes a lot of sense for Liev Tell to be Liam's character for the Vox Machina one-shot. And that's not all. Sam Riegel also has some character or, PC problems when it comes to who he's going to be playing in the Mighty Nein game. Now, realistically, there's only two choices, and they are both still very much alive and available. One being Veth Bernardo, and the other being Luke Bernardo. And, realistically, either could work here. I would think Luke might be a little bit less of a, Veth might step up this time, and Luke, is told to sit on the back foot because that's a dangerous move, and you're like level 13 as opposed to the rest of us who are level 20. But Veth's retired, and I genuinely feel like she might not want to do anything at all, so Luke might be the only option. Who knows? It's kind of up in the air about who he's going to be playing here for this game. Realistically, both fit. They're like essentially the same character, if you will. They're roughly the same classes. In fact, I think Luke actually leans a little bit heavier into Wizard than Veth does, but it's kind of the same thing. They're sort of split down the middle of both being a rogue and a wizard, so realistically, you're just playing the same character, just one is much younger and the son of the other character. So, it's either way, it's the same. It's a Bernardo, so that's fine. And, it'll be fun that way. Who knows? I would prefer Veth getting, one last hurrah because she wasn't in the Mighty Nein one-shot they did a little while back. So giving her one last hurrah, one last stand, and then retiring, like, permanently would be fine to me. But, that's up to Sam Riegel, realistically. Does he want to mix it up again, or does he want to not? And as cool as all of this is, and it really is truly cool and truly badass that we get to see all of this stuff, that we get to see the Mighty Nein come back and have one last hurrah, we get to see the Vox Machina do the same thing. So it's really cool that these groups are coming back. But this has come at a mild cost for a handful of people. And that is, it feels like Campaign 3 is now suddenly, rapidly approaching its end. Beforehand, it didn't feel like that, right? Because we initially thought that Bell's Hells were going to have to be the ones to take out all of these groups. The Dig Site and the Malleus Key, we thought that would be Bell's Hells. The Weave Mind, we thought that would be Bell's Hells. And then the Hollowed Cage and Ludinous, which is still going to Bell's Hells, but we thought they'd all be Bell's Hells. So we'd have to watch travel times for them getting to the Malleus Key, and then they'd have to fight in the Malleus Key. If they win, they get to rest up. We have to wait for them to rest up. Then they go on to Ruidus. They have to potentially take the other side of the Bloody Bridge, and then again, rest up. They would then have to make their way to Khaviris and fight the Weave Mind, and sneak through Khaviris to get to them, and then fight them, then rest up, and then go fight Ludinous after that. So this is taking out like 4 days of rest here, which could have been like, several sessions that have been sort of taken away here. But the fact that these two groups are happening, or these 3 groups are happening, and we get to see them again is really cool. It has come at a slight cost of potentially shortening the campaign significantly. I thought we still had 20-ish episodes at the least of Campaign 3. Now it feels like we have 10, which is half of what I initially thought we'd still have, which is wild and crazy to me. But there is still a way that these episodes aren't the end, that this sort of last push isn't it, and it would feel more like a Infinity War as opposed to a Endgame for those Marvel fans out there. And that basically is simply the Bell's Hells fail, and Predathos is released still, whether it be through Ludinous releasing Predathos or whether it be Liliana releasing Predathos. I think either option is realistically possible and very strong, because Liliana is still a on the fence character for me, and of course we're going to get some stuff from her in the next episode on Thursday, whenever not whenever that happens, but right at the start of the episode. They're literally talking to her right now, or at least Imogen is. So we're going to get some insight into her character very shortly, but I think it's a very good possibility, because by the way she sounds, she's still sitting on the fence, oh, I do believe Predathos will make a better world for us, and she doesn't necessarily have the same malice for the gods as Ludinous does, but she does still want to release Predathos to make it better for Ruidus-born people. And I think that is going to overwrite her love for Imogen, and she is going to release Predathos. It's either going to be her or Ludinous, and I think if this happens with Predathos being released, we do still get another 20 episodes or 15 episodes out of this campaign. So that would be really cool. A lot of other people have suggested like they might do some like smaller arcs afterwards to wrap up the characters, which makes a lot of sense. So who knows? But I do think that with Vox Machina and Mighty Nein sort of stepping up, it has significantly shortened the lifespan of Campaign 3. But that's just my thoughts on all of this realistically, and I had to talk about it all because there's so much going on right now for Campaign 3, and it's really exciting. I'm very excited for like these one shots. I'm very hyped for it. So yeah, just let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think that these one shots are going to be really badass and really fun? I would hope you think that. And do you think that this does in fact like dramatically shorten Campaign 3? Do you think that this dramatically affects how long this campaign was going to run because they're now chopping up who has what responsibility? Granted, it's been about fucking time that, you know, these two groups step up and help. Like, it seems like the Mighty Nein have been, you know, doing things on their own, which I want to know what the hell they're doing. But at the same time, Vox Machina, there's a couple of members who are just doing nothing. Like, Grog hasn't done anything. Pike, yeah, she was there, like, episode, like, 35. Like, 800 years ago, as far as I'm concerned. Like, it's been a while since she's been around. Percy, Vex, and Keyleth have all been doing stuff, but that's it, realistically. Like, Scalen's not been around, and Terry hasn't been doing anything. Vax was there, but he's been captured now, realistically. So these characters have needed to step up for a while, because this is a world-ending event, and none of them have been doing anything like the Bells Hells have. So, you know, about time these characters are stepping up, because they are fucking gods in their own right. So yeah. Anyway, let me know what you think. That's clearly what I think. And I'll see you guys on Friday for the recap of episode 105. Till then, peace.